Welcome to episode 6 of Parker Brothers Build the Boardwalk. Last week, Diana Parker met Dr. Jonas, who has a strong opinion about people who fancy themselves ill. But tempered with Dr. Fall's praise of Diana's nursing skills and her increasing willingness to entertain on the pianoforte, his opinion of her is rapidly changing. The Hayward girls removed to Park Place for peace and quiet, while Diana took their place at her brother's house. On Sunday afternoons, the girls returned to Bedford Place to give Diana a break. Alison takes the Parker children to the park whenever the weather is fine. Today, the little girls roll hoops back and forth on the path as Alison looks on. Mr. Stringer approaches and almost passes her before she sees him. Alison steps directly into his path.
Good day to you, Mr. Stringer.
Good day to you, Miss Alison. I see you have charge of Miss Jenny and Alicia today.
Yes, they are good girls, and it does me good to be out of doors with them.
You and I think alike there. I can't quite get used to being indoors so much, but I hope to be out of doors come spring.
Oh?
Mr. Milsham is remodeling Lady Denham's stables starting in April. So I will be home for the best part of the spring.
And then you may take your Sunday afternoon strolls on the beach instead of in the city.
Aye, that's exactly what I'll do. There's something about the sea. These London folk don't know what they're missing.
Are you also an enthusiast for Sanditon then? As much as Mr. Parker?
No. But it does have some great potential. Mr. Parker has some very pretty ideas. Some of them I came up with, but that will be all secret. I'd sure like to see it come together.
Did not you design the terrace?
Mr. Parker and I both had some ideas for it, but the main plan was in Hargreaves.
And will it be built next summer?
As soon as the funding is sorted out, I suppose. I hope I can be part of the effort. I'd like to finish it in tribute to my father.
Mr. Stringer sees that the little girls have stopped rolling their hoops and are looking at him curiously. Alicia whispers a question to Alison, and she blushes.
I suppose I ought to let you young ladies get on with your walk. It was nice to see you, miss.
Have a good day, Mr. Stringer.
A few days later, it's the end of February. Snow is melting and an early robin chirps outside the Bedford house window. Charlotte and Alison are paying one of their frequent visits to Mary and baby Lily.
You are looking well, Mary.
Thank you, Alison. I came down to dinner for the 3rd time last night.
I'm sure that made Mr. Parker very happy.
He wasn't here. He's been so busy with dinners and parties. He thinks Sanditon will be full this summer.
That's good news, surely.
I suppose it is. Now that I am better and the baby is asleep, would you not like to come back and stay with us?
Would that suit Diana?
Diana is certainly happy to stay, but in order for Dr. Jonas to say I am fully recovered, I think she will have to go back home. As long as she is here, Dr. Jonas will come around to feel my pulse. And hers. He's teaching her how to take the pulse on her neck.
On her neck? That sounds very intimate.
Yes. It is quite comical to watch them. I pretend to go to sleep, and they pay me no mind whatsoever. But if I ever want to get out of the house, I must either send Diana back to Park Place or get them married. For Dr. Jonas will not discharge me as long as he can flirt with Diana. When she comes, you must tease her about her thinking he was only an apothecary.
Hey, Charlotte, Alison, so good of you to come, my dears. We see so little company these days.
Except for the apothecary. Mary was just telling us about his visits.
And what he is teaching you to do that requires his hands to be about your neck.
Oh, he's just teaching me how to take my corticoid pulse. It can be found there more reliably than on one's wrist.
He never takes my carotid pulse.
But you have taken Miss Alison to call him an apothecary. He is no apothecary. He has never been an apothecary. In fact, there is not one apothecary in this neighborhood. The only inconvenience of living at Bedford Place, perhaps, but so it is.
Then what is he, pray?
Why, he's... Dr. Jonas. Nothing but a Jonas. Something between a man and an angel, but without the least spice of an apothecary.
I see. I'm glad to have that clarified. And do you accompany this non-apothecary on the pianoforte when he sings?
Oh, yes. He has the most marvelous voice.
We've never had so much music in this house. Tom had to send him away at midnight last night.
He would stay until I had played through the entire book of sonatinas. I could not help that it took so long.
Especially when turning the pages was so very taxing. It took a quarter of an hour to get from one piece to the next.
Oh, but he has so many fascinating things to say between the times. Was that the door? Dr. Jonas is bringing me some medicine for Lord Grasmere's gout.
Do I hear wedding bells?
I hope so. It's good to see Diana so happy.
Susanna and Diana are both so very pretty and affable. I'm surprised they've not had an offer before this.
Well, Susanna did almost marry once. Her father would not allow it, and so the doctor left Sanditon. She doesn't often come home because of that disappointment.
And does Mr. Parker approve of Dr. Jonas?
Oh, yes. In fact, Tom takes quite the opposite approach from his father. He does not want to see the sad story repeated.
I suppose that does not hurt that Dr. Jonas might send all his patients to Sanditon if he married into the Parkers.
No, indeed.
The Parker children come into their mother's bedroom to see the Hayward girls. They beg to play hide and seek. Alison hands baby Lily to Charlotte and lets the children lead her away.
Alison's mood seems to be lightening a little. How is she liking London?
I'm afraid she's not as fond of it as I am. I had hoped this would be a diversion for her, but it seems to have affected her the opposite way.
Oh?
The noise bothers her, and calling on people she barely knows taxes her excessively. She has a very good heart, but she is shy of strangers.
I am sorry that she has not found it more enjoyable.
Oddly enough, she has struck up a friendship with Lady Denham. Or rather, Lady Denham has taken a liking to her.
Has she? I could see that Lady Denham preferred her company when we were in Sanditon.
Alison likes to be of use. She has the patience of a job when it comes to bearing with the faults of others.
She would rather deal with the one than the ton.
Exactly. Even if that one be Lady Denham.
Oh, well, Lady Denham did invite her to Sanditon House before we came to town, but I had no idea that she would ever want to go.
It's not that she hasn't enjoyed London at all. She's just better suited to the country.
Well, if she can handle Lady Denham, who am I to stand in the way? I will write to your parents and recommend a visit, if the invitation is still open.
In fact, Lady Denham did renew the invitation for when she returns to Sanditon in a fortnight.
Oh, all right. But you'll stay on with us, won't you, Charlotte? Can you bear the clatter of the children?
Bear it. I love it. Do you remember how many sisters and brothers I have? It is too quiet without the children.
Quite.
Meanwhile, in the Bedford House front hall, Dr. Jonas holds out a package to Diana.
I brought you the Colchicum autumnale for your friend.
Thank you, Doctor.
And just who is this Lord Grasmere exactly?
Just an acquaintance.
Do you often go to this much trouble to treat the ills of your acquaintances?
Well, Tom is trying to cultivate a friendship. He wants him to come to Sanditon.
Him and all of London, I think.
Oh, that would make Tom very happy.
So, he's not a particular friend of your own, then?
Of mine? Why would you think so?
Most young ladies don't concern themselves with a man's health unless they are related to him.
Oh, no, he is none of my relation.
I see.
Nor will he ever be.
Ah, I am glad to hear it. I bought you something else.
What's this?
A little medicinal chocolate for my favourite nurse.
Medicinal chocolate?
Yes, I fear she's growing too thin with all the energy she's exerting and not remembering to take care of herself.
And what are the instructions?
Oh, at least 3 times a day, if not more. Now promise me you will not share this with the little Parkers.
If you think it best, Dr. Jonas.
I do.
Would you like to come up and see Mary? She's feeling very well today.
And I should save her the bill of another visit. No, I came to see how her nurse was feeling today.
Do you mean Mrs. Mifflin? Is the chocolate for her?
You know very well who I mean, Miss Diana. The chocolate is most definitely not for Mrs. Mifflin. You of all people should know how injurious it would be to her complexion. You must promise me that you will take every single dose of this yourself.
All right, if I must.
And perhaps I may see you again when I call upon your sister-in-law Friday next. I fear it may be my last visit. I cannot think of another reason to prolong her case.
Oh. But I think Tom wanted to hear more from you on the benefits of sea bathing. Perhaps he will invite you to dinner next week.
I'm always happy to expand my views of sea bathing, so long as it also affords the pleasure of singing with his beautiful pianoforte. I bid you good day, Miss Diana.
And a good day to you.
Diana slowly closes the door, watching him as long as she can without being too obvious that she's savouring every single moment. When the door is finally closed, she holds the paper packages of autumn crocus and medicinal chocolate close to her chest and smiles to herself. On a windy March day, in the park near Bedford Place, Sims, the Parker's maidservant, is watching as Alicia throws bread to the ducks, while Alison helps Jenny and little Henry fly a kite. Henry begs to hold it all by himself.
Henry, you're too little.
Let's give your brother a turn, shall we? I'll help you hold it, Henry.
Good day to you, Miss Alison.
Alison is so surprised that she lets go of the spool of the kite string, and the kite begins to fly off.
My kite! Catch it, Alison!
Mr. Stringer runs off to fetch it. A few minutes later, he brings it back, a bit breathless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stringer. What did we tell him, children?
Thank you, Mr. Stringer.
Here you go, young lady. Best hold on tight.
I was the one who let it go.
I'm afraid I startled you, miss.
Oh, I am easily startled. Wait, it's Tuesday. You are never here on a Tuesday. Is your apprenticeship finished already?
Oh, no, miss. It will go on for 2 years at least. We finished early today. I go back to Sanditon tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Will you be coming back to London for the summer then?
I expect not. We have several projects lined up on the south coast.
And Lady Denham's stables is one of them.
That's our first one. First, we'll do a proper survey so we can draw up the plans for an extensive renovation. She spares no expense when it comes to quartering for her milch asses.
Sparing no expense is unusual for her. Too bad for Mr. Parker that she does not look at Sanditon that way.
Aye, miss. I'm going to miss my walks in London. And seeing my friends here. I'll bet this park will be covered in daffodils in a few weeks.
Do you enjoy flowers, Mr. Stringer?
Do you think ladies are the only one who enjoy beautiful things of nature?
No, indeed. My father waxes most eloquent on the verdure of a hayfield in July.
He is of my mind, then.
You are lucky, I think, to be going back to the country in the spring.
How so, miss?
It is just a few steps to be surrounded by beauty. Here, at least at Bedford Place, we must walk a good distance to see the trees against the sky.
Do you not enjoy staying in London?
I confess that I am not as fond of it as I imagined.
But all the shops, and the sights, and the balls, that must be exciting.
Yes, but excitement is not my cup of tea.
And what is your cup of tea exactly, Miss Alison?
You are rather inquisitive, Mr. Stringer.
Beg pardon, miss. I like to ask questions of interesting people.
Well, I don't mind telling you that my cup of tea is a long walk on a country lane and making the indoors as beautiful as God's out-of-doors.
I'll bet your home in Wellington is a place of great beauty, then.
Oh, it is. But just because it's home, not because of anything I've done to beautify it.
I rather doubt that, Miss Alison.
Alison, I'm cold.
I suppose we should be going home.
I hope you get back to your country soon, miss.
As do I, Mrs. Stringer. Good day.
Stringer tips his hat and walks off, whistling. That afternoon, the Parker carriage pulls up to a handsome London townhouse. Charlotte is admitted to the house by a butler, who takes her to where Lady Susan is seated, reading a book. She puts it aside as soon as Charlotte comes in.
Charlotte, my dear, how glad I am to see you.
And are you, Lady Susan?
Just Susan, if you don't mind. I do want us to become good friends. Have some tea. I want to give you a hint.
A hint? About what?
I have an idea that might promote Tom Parker's town. A friend of mine who is rather famous among the nobility is fond of picnics. He's looking for a picturesque spot by the sea to celebrate his name day in a rustic style. Among other things, it would involve several donkeys to carry the whole party and a large supply of cold meats and cakes.
That sounds delightful.
Do you not think Sanditon would do for such a picnic?
I do.
And do you suppose Mr. Parker could furnish me with the names of those who might supply these articles?
I will certainly ask him.
Oh, thank you, Charlotte. I think it might be a nice way to start the summer in Sanditon.
I agree. And may I ask, when is his name day?
Oh, the 23rd of April.
Good. That is a few weeks yet. I'm sure Mr. Parker will be very enthusiastic.
Oh, yes. Thomas Parker is nothing if not enthusiastic. But what of his brother, your Mr. Sidney? When does he return from Antigua?
Not for 2 or 3 weeks yet. And you must not call him my Mr. Sidney when he's engaged to Mrs. Campion.
You have not lost him yet?
For better or for worse, I'm reconciled to it.
It is not for better or for worse yet. You know, I move in many of the same circles as Mrs. Campion. There are many gentlemen who would be glad to marry her.
I'm sure there are.
Perhaps I could provide her with a distraction so that maybe she would feel free to change her mind.
Lady Susan, I wish you wouldn't.
And why not? It would be for everyone's good.
I beg you, please, do not. It does not seem right to meddle with a lady's affections. What?
Oh, Charlotte, how can you be so pure of heart? I'm afraid it will be the cause of your own torment. You must allow me to help you.
I'm resolved not to allow my happiness to depend solely on one person. I think we must let them have whatever happiness they can find now that he has given her his word.
She could be equally happy with anyone else, with someone else. Do you think that I have the power to force anything on her against her will? It would be her decision. But I can see that it does distress you, so I will drop the matter. Now, do remember the picnic. If Mr. Parker can provide the information, it just might be the best thing that ever happened to Sanditon.
I will. Thank you, Susan.
Back at Bedford Place, Tom Parker is in the library working on accounts.
Charlotte, back so soon. How is Lady Susan?
Very well. She has made a request that sounds rather exciting for Sanditon.
A request? What is it?
She would like to arrange a rustic picnic for the Prince Regent on his name day.
Charlotte! If the Prince Regent comes to Sanditon, we are made. Everyone will want to come. Oh, Charlotte, this is exactly what we need.
It does sound very promising. She wishes for you to provide the names of people who could supply the cold meats and cakes, and also for the donkeys that may ride to the shore.
Yes, of course, Charlotte. I knew you were a Sanditon enthusiast from the first. You are gold. Mary, Diana, come hear the news.
What is it, Tom?
The Prince Regent is coming to Sanditon.
When?
On his name day, which is...
The 23rd of April.
He is coming for a rustic picnic, and we have Charlotte to thank.
Lady Susan, actually. I am only the messenger.
Now we must find donkeys enough to carry his party. I am sure it will be a large one. I hope we can arrange it in time.
What may I do?
Well, let's see. You could order the cold meats and the buns and cakes. Mary, what do you think? Do you think Bailey's pastry shop can handle all that?
If not, perhaps Lady Denham's cook and Mrs. Hillier could assist with whatever they cannot provide.
I could write to them and arrange it.
Yes, Diana, excellent.
I believe Lady Susan wanted to arrange it herself.
Oh, and I will write to Hillier and ask for all the names of the surrounding farmers who would be willing to lend their donkeys. I am sure Lady Denham would lend her milch asses to the cause. What an honor!
But Lady Susan only needed the names of those who could supply the articles.
But she need not take the trouble to arrange such things. We will get everything sorted, then present the plans all neatly drawn up, so there is nothing for her to do.
Only, Tom, do not take on more than Lady Susan is asking for.
No, just the buns and the asses, nothing else, I promise.
That same day, Mr. Tracy is admitted into Mrs. Campion's posh London home. He sees the calling cards of Mrs. Griffith and Miss Lamb on the hall table, among others.
Mrs. Campion is out for the morning, sir. Would you like to leave your card?
Can you tell me if she is planning to be at home before dinner?
She did say that she would be back for luncheon, sir.
Then I will wait a few minutes and see if I may see her, if you don't mind.
As you wish, sir.
The servant goes back to the door to await his mistress, and Tracy studies the cards on the table. The servant opens the front door, and Mrs. Campion comes in from shopping. As she comes in, Mr. Tracy nonchalantly places the calling card into his pocket.
Mr. Tracy, I was not expecting you.
My dear Mrs. Campion, how fortuitous. I was about to leave my card. You are looking quite lovely. Have you had a good morning?
Yes, I have, in fact.
Mrs. Campion looks at the cards on the table.
Oh, Mrs. Griffiths was here. I cannot say that I'm sorry I was out. Such a flustered flibberty-gibbet.
I would say her ward gives her good cause.
True. And what brings you to my door? Do you have any news of Sydney?
No, I do not. Even the simplest of trials can in colonial courts. But may I not give you the solace of my presence in his absence?
I am in no need of solace, Mr. Tracy. Sydney will be here soon, and all will be well.
Yes, I hope you are right. He did ask me to keep an eye on you, though. So far, I've seen so little that I do not know whether I've reason to be concerned. Fortunately, as a sparkling wheel on which society turns, I can, at least, receive those assurances secondhand. But here I am at last, to verify with my own eyes that you are indeed quite well. Sydney need not have worried. Here you are, bright and gay. I cannot tell that you are missing him at all.
Oh, of course I miss him. But it is sweet of you to call. Since you have gone to so much trouble, I suppose you should stay to luncheon. The Babingtons are coming. They will be here at any moment.
I am sure that I should. It is generally thought better to become accustomed to the brightness gradually, after being in darkness for so long. I can barely keep my eyes open in your sudden brilliance.
You may stop your flattery now, Mr. Tracy. You have an invitation to luncheon. Was there something else you wanted?
Indeed, there is. I suppose you are going to your cousin's ball tonight.
Yes, I thought I would put in an appearance.
You know, the old Earl will insist on the first 2 dances unless you are engaged beforehand.
And you thought you might rescue my toes from being trodden?
I am at your service, my lady. I have no thought but of the delicacy of your poites orte.
The Babingtons arrive. Esther and Mrs. Campion greet each other with warm civility on either side.
My dear Mrs. Campion, it has been too long.
I agree. How was Kent?
Delightful. I had always thought Sussex the most beautiful, but I believe the estate in Kent may be the best after all.
Indeed. I feel the same about Everley. Once Sydney settles there, I hope he will never leave. But I fear he may want to travel more than I have a taste for.
He does seem to be a bit of a gypsy. Once he is settled with a new wife, that may change. You were the cause of all his roving, so perhaps you will be the cure as well.
I am not sure I have the pleasure of understanding you.
I am told that when you married Mr. Campion, Sydney's heart was quite broken. He went to Antigua to get over you, and since then he has been a gypsy. He's never been back to Sanditon for 2 weeks together, until last summer.
Oh, yes, I had heard some report of that nature. Such a sensitive nature he has. Poor lamb. I'm very sorry it drove him to Antigua. He has quite the time with his little heiress he acquired from that adventure.
Luncheon is served, madame.
Tracy, I've not seen you since Parker left us. How's your aunt?
Alive at present, in varying states of sensibility.
Ah, how I describe myself most days.
Indeed.
Sydney will be back soon, I should think. Pity he had to go at all in the winter.
I told him it was not necessary, but he would go.
I told him that myself, but if the beauty of Mrs. Eliza Campion could not keep him here, then who was I to persuade him otherwise?
I believe he was very worried for Miss Lamb's fortune. It would be a loss indeed.
A very great loss. And if I knew Sydney, he would feel obligated to support her to some degree as her guardian, if her income were to be reduced.
Let us hope he is successful then in preventing the loss.
Mrs. Campion, you need not fear. I told him that the outcome was virtually guaranteed to be in Miss Lamb's favor, but to board a ship in the dead of winter unnecessarily, well, I would never do so if I were blessed, such as he. East or west, home is best, what?
I quite agree, Mr. Tracy. But I am sure Lady Babington is right. He felt obligated for Miss Lamb's sake.
Oh yes, no doubt. He has an unflinching determination to do what's right, no matter what distress it may induce.
Quite right. Oh, look what he did for his brother.
What did he do for his brother?
Well, for instance, last summer, he pulled Crow and me, kicking and screaming, down to Sanditon, for which I am forever grateful now, considering my conjugal felicity. But at the time, he had to nag us into acquiescence, which is very unlike him. I can only surmise that he did it because he felt so guilty for all the effort Tom went into in arranging him to go to Antigua all those years ago, only to have the venture fail so miserably.
Fail so miserably? What exactly are you speaking of?
Well, it was a long time ago.
Pray, continue.
He came back with much less cash than Tom sent him with, I'm afraid. But he's been very successful in his investments ever since. He learns from his mistakes. I will give him that, which is more than I can say for much of the nobility.
Hear, hear. You are quite right. Sidney is a learner, though it did take a second time going into the red for him to see that he should not venture near a gambling table when his mind is in a state so black.
Goodness. He did not have such a weakness for cards when I knew him before.
Oh, he is normally very moderate in his habits. Since he came from Antigua, he is reformed.
Indeed. He has a ward. It is his duty to be a proper model, but her days of instruction are nearly over. Let us hope he can stay on the straight and narrow without her gaze upon him.
All this talk of money and debt is so tedious. Mrs. Campion, what have you seen in the theater since we last saw you? I particularly enjoy going now that Lord Babington attends with me.
Oh, well, you would have enjoyed the Christmas pantomimes this year, and I went to a reading of Manfred last week. Byron is always excellent entertainment. But, Mr. Tracy, tell me more about Sidney and Antigua. Did he leave much gambling debt?
Well, no. A friend of his paid it off. I met Sidney at his lowest point, I'm afraid. I do not like to talk of those days. But rest assured, Mrs. Campion, he has made much of himself since then. I have no reason to think that he will ever relapse to those habits again.
I heard his misfortune was due more to the fact that he invested in a plantation right before the owner gave his slaves their freedom. He took a huge loss. I'm not sure what happened to Sidney and Antigua. He generally has a very cool head for business.
His heart is too soft. He has too much pity on those beneath him.
The luncheon ends and Lord Babington and his wife travel back to their London abode.
Mrs. Campion certainly knows how to lay a table. I don't think I shall need any dinner tonight.
Especially seeing how your mouth is so full of your own foot.
Yes. I cannot believe I nearly told Mrs. Campion that Sidney was marrying her to get his brother out of debt.
You covered yourself fairly well. I was quite proud of you. I'm not sure she caught your meaning, though surely she has some inkling. Sidney Parker is no actor. I would expect she is well aware of the reason he is marrying her.
Do you think so?
Yes, although she may not want to admit it to herself yet, but I think she knows.
The next day, Otis Molyneux and his business partner, Joseph Thomas, are setting out books to sell in front of their London bookshop. Otis finds a calling card on a stack of books.
Joe, was Miss Lamb here this morning?
Miss Lamb? No, we just opened. I haven't seen anyone. What do you have there?
This is Georgiana's calling card, and it has an address on the back. I wonder how it got here.
Maybe it fell out of that pocket of love letters you always carry.
I don't know what you were talking about. This is not one of her cards from last year. I do not know this address.
Do you think Miss Lamb is trying to reach you?
I cannot fathom why else it would be here. I do believe I will take the morning off, Joe. There is a call that I need to pay.
Later that morning, Otis arrives at the house of Mrs. Griffiths. He waits in the entry while her manservant tells Mrs. Griffiths that he's there.
What on earth? Is he actually downstairs?
Yes, ma'am.
But he promised Mr. Sidney that he would stay away.
It would appear he has broken his promise.
How does he even know where we live? Tell him to go away. Tell him we are not home. And furthermore, tell him he is not allowed to call here anymore.
Very good, ma'am.
Cridwell delivers this message, and Otis is seen dejectedly leaving Mrs. Griffith's abode. That same day, Mrs. Griffiths and Georgiana are shopping across the street from Otis Molyneux's bookstore. Otis sits at a table outside the store, amidst racks of books displayed on the sidewalk. He is writing a speech. He appears tired and low in spirits. After a few moments, he puts his head into his hands to rest and to think. Georgiana, unbeknownst to him, has been watching him for the last few minutes from across the street. Mrs. Griffiths calls her to follow her into the carriage.
Miss Lamb, do not dawdle.
When Otis hears her name, he looks up and nods to her. His eyes meet Georgiana's with an expression of sadness. She meets his gaze, returns a slight nod, then sets into the carriage and is gone. Later that evening, Otis and his partner, Joseph Thomas, lock the door of their store and begin the walk home.
Will you take supper with me and the wife tonight?
That's kind of you, Joe, but I think I'm just going to go to bed.
You need to eat, my friend.
Otis and Joe see a gentleman ahead of them walking unsteadily. He addresses a young lady. It is Clara Brerington, the estranged niece of Lady Denham.
Well, if it isn't the orphaned waif, Miss Clara. I never thought I'd see you again.
And good day to you, Sir Edward.
Have you had any word from your aunt?
No. Have you?
Why would I want to? The day we parted company was my first day of true freedom.
I thought perhaps you might miss living at Denham Place.
That leaky barn?
Come now, it's a beautiful place, even if the roof does leak a little.
That shows how little you know about what it takes to run even a small estate. It would cost a fortune to replace the roof, an expense that estate could not afford.
Surely it could not be as bad as all that. With Denham Place Farms and the cottage ornée, surely you could get some rent money and eventually repair it.
You saw how Sanditon was bursting at the seams last summer. I got to hold £10 rent on the cottage. And who would want to stay under the roof of Denham Place? Only to get a shower bath every time it rains, and a cold one at that.
Clara politely smiles at his joke. They reach a modest house and Clara starts to turn in.
Would you like to come in for some refreshment?
You are most hospitable, Miss Brereton. But even I can tell when I've imbibed too much for an evening.
Very well. It has been most enlightening to see you again. I will be leaving London tomorrow, for good.
And where are you going?
I'm off to Hastings. My uncle has an establishment there. I long to see the seaside again.
How nice for you.
Edward Denham walks on without taking any leave of Miss Brereton. Clara gives a disgusted sigh and watches him for a moment before turning into her family's house. By this time, Otis and Mr. Thomas have come up closer to where Sir Edward and Clara have been conversing. They follow Sir Edward at a distance and see him turning into the rooming house.
Do you know who that gentleman is?
The landlady says he's renting the nicest rooms in her nicest house. He's a gentleman on hard times. Sir Durham, maybe?
Is it Denham?
That sounds right. Do you know him?
No, but I believe he is from Sanditon, where I visited Miss Lambe last summer.
Oh, he looks plenty soused. Are you sure you won't come in for supper?
No, but thank you, my friend.
Until tomorrow, then.
A couple of weeks later, Charlotte and Georgiana are at another ball. They finish a dance with a final bow to their partners, then sit down in a nook outside the ballroom.
Let's hide away here, Charlotte. We do not want to dance the next.
With whom were you dancing?
I hardly know. Lord Morgan Muffle or something. Honestly, Charlotte, only two types of men ask me. They're either cads or fortune hunters. I'm sick of them all.
Surely there is one man in London with honourable intentions.
That kind of man is extinct. If one is ever found, he will be put him into the museum. Besides, after Mr. Howard ruins my reputation, no good man will put himself in my path, unless he is in desperate need of money.
What about Mr. Arthur?
He is a breed all his own. I've been thinking, Charlotte. I know Otis used my name to increase his available capital for the gaming tables, but how is that so much worse than any other man who marries me for money? How is it any worse than what Sydney is doing? At least Otis understands me.
But does he love you or your money more? Based on his previous actions, it is hard to tell.
I don't know. I saw him a few days ago at his bookstall. He looked so forlorn. He was in a shabby coat and he was very thin. Do you know, he tried to call on me twice in the past week.
Did he really?
I only know because Phillida can't keep her mouth shut. Mrs. Griffiths forbade him from coming up.
Did you want to see him?
Not until now. After I saw him looking so poorly the other day, I changed my mind. Surely he cannot be at the gaming tables very much when he looks so poor. Unless that is why he is so poor.
There is something I ought to tell you. I didn't say anything before because I did not think you wanted to see him, and because of what happened last summer.
What is it?
I heard Mr. Molyneux deliver a speech several weeks ago. Afterwards, he inquired after you. He wanted to tell you that he was not gambling anymore, that he earns his living by bookselling.
It must be a small income. He looks wretched.
I still think it would be wise not to see him until Sydney comes back. It should be any day now.
You know he would never approve of a meeting of any kind. I just simply want to know how he is. That is all. Besides you and Arthur, I have no friends in London anymore. You don't know what it's like to be paraded through every ball and put on display every morning at home. I wish I'd never come out. Would run away from it all if I could.
You do not mean that.
Yes, I do. In truth, I would rather live in some no-name village where I'm not gawked at by new people every day.
That is not what you said last summer. Remember? Sanditon was tedious and London was the only place to be.
Last summer, Otis was here. I was happy wherever he was.
Well, I am glad you are here with me.
You are my dearest friend, Charlotte.
Charlotte smiles and squeezes her hand. They stroll back to the dance floor and amused to see Arthur Parker dancing with Alison in a most jubilant manner.
It looks like your sister is getting her exercise.
I'm afraid he's going to whirl her right out the window.
I award him first prize for most effervescent. He is much more enjoyable to watch than the stuffed shirts I've been dancing with.
Alison will sleep well tonight, I'm sure.
The dance ends and Arthur and Alison come towards them. He leads Alison to a nearby chair.
I've never enjoyed watching anyone dance as much as you, Mr. Parker.
Indeed, I do enjoy the exercise. Better than a 10-mile march. A good partner makes it infinitely more enjoyable. Your sister is a capital dancer, Miss Hayward, but I'm afraid I have worn her out.
Yes, I think it was all she could do to keep her feet on the ground after being spun around by you.
It is hard to stay grounded when tripping the light fantastic with Arthur Parker.
I dare say. Are either of you ladies hunting for partners tonight?
Hurting is right. The last hobbledehoy would not stay off my toes, and horrid Mr. Watts was just about ready to pounce when I hid away with Charlotte.
I think this is to be the last set.
I would be happy not to dance with Mr. Watts.
Right then. We have several minutes left. I will go find some refreshment and meet you on the floor. Do you need any punch?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Parker.
And you, Miss Hayward?
I'm fine, thank you.
Arthur leaves to get some punch. Charlotte gives Georgiana a questioning look.
Mr. Arthur and I have worked out a little scheme. He rescues me when I want to avoid an odious partner, and I, or rather my inheritance, gives them some consequence in the eyes of the ladies. Lately, it has meant 2 dances. I cannot do more, people will really talk.
Well, as it is, they will think you were almost engaged.
What of it?
Charlotte looks into the ballroom to see Arthur conversing with some ladies of fashion.
Well, he certainly enjoys the distinction you gave him in the eyes of the beau monde.
It is highly advantageous for both of us.
A few days later, Alison and Lady Denham make ready to leave London. Charlotte embraces her sister in front of the waiting carriage at Park Place. Susanna and Diana Parker stand ready to see off their guests. Lady Denham is handed into the coach first.
Are you sure about this, Alison?
I am sure. I am not cut out to live in the city. I will be fine with some rest in the country and with someone who needs me.
I'm going to miss you.
And I you, but Mr. Parker said you will all be down in a few weeks.
Are you coming?
Coming, Lady Denham.
Write to me as soon as you arrive. I love you.
I love you too, Charlotte.
Alison steps into the coach and they start for Sanditon. Charlotte and the Parker sisters wave as they recede from view. Back at Bedford Place, Charlotte is jostling baby James, who is now nearing 2 years of age. While she tries to get him to sleep, she peruses the titles in the Bedford Place library. Each time she stops to take a book from the shelf, James begins to cry.
Radcliffe? No, I agree, too scary. See, Bernie? Shakespeare.
James stops crying as she pulls out a volume of sonnets and sits down.
Fond of the bard, are we? Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Summer's day would be quite nice, would it not, Master James? With the sun on our faces and the breeze on our backs.
After only a few lines, James is asleep. Charlotte stares out of the window as the dreary March drizzle begins to spatter against the glass. Mary appears at the door.
Mary! Oh, it is good to see you up and about again.
It's so good to be up. The bedroom is so confining day after day. You're looking pensive today, Charlotte.
Perhaps it is the weather.
I expect you miss Alison.
Yes, but I think it is best that she went back to Sanditon.
Perhaps you are missing someone else? I miss him too, but I suspect not quite in the same way you do.
I had not thought I could miss someone so much after such a short acquaintance.
And yet you do.
I suppose I do.
You know, Charlotte, I did not take your feelings into account when I asked you to stay with us. I was desperate about our nursery maid leaving. I was not thinking clearly. I hope it has not been too difficult.
On the contrary, Mary, I love being here with you and Tom, but I do not find London to my taste as much as I had hoped.
Indeed. When I first came to London, I thought it excessively diverting.
It is diverting, but I was looking for more. I've always had this sense that I could do something of great import. I don't know what exactly, but it seemed like it would never happen in Willingdon. I was sure that the city would be somewhere something exciting would happen.
To be sure.
But now I think I was mistaken. I'm only one in thousands and thousands of people. It is difficult to know people here, to really know them. It seems less and less likely that I will do anything significant here because everyone I meet in society seems so superficial.
It is sometimes hard to make new friends in a city as large as this. I believe we leave the greatest impressions on the people whom we know really well, not the people one meets for a moment at a rote. You and Alison have been a tremendous help to us this winter. You kept me from going mad as King George. And look at Miss Lamb. If anyone needs a friend in this country, she does. And you have been that for her. The impact of such a friendship cannot be underestimated.
I hope so. But I'm not her only friend. Arthur is as well.
Yes, and in turn, Miss Lamb helps Arthur to turn his focus from himself. I know I am speaking rather freely. You understand that I have the highest regard for Arthur, despite his preoccupation with food and ill health. He is as much of a brother to me as my own.
Of course. I feel that way as well. I once said something to Sydney less than complimentary about Arthur, and he chastised me severely. Quite rightly, now that I think about it. But I was not prepared for his sharpness.
He was not always that way. But after he was jilted by Eliza, his tongue became razor sharp. Anyone who dared to criticize the only people he felt he could count on received a deadly lashing. For a while, he trusted no one outside of his own family. I hope he was not too severe on you. Charlotte, he really needs to learn to rein it in, and I think he will, if he can let go of his bitterness.
Now that he is to marry Mrs. Campion.
Perhaps, I can only hope. I had thought it would be someone else to cure that ill. But now I must hope for the best, since this is the course that he has chosen.
A couple of days later at Bedford Place, Wickens carries a letter on a tray to Tom Parker with urgency. As he reads, he becomes anxious and animated.
Is it from Sydney?
I wish. It's from Mrs. Griffiths. Miss Lamb has run away.
Run away?
I can't believe it. What on earth would possess her to do that?
Otis has been trying to see her again, and Mrs. Griffiths won't let them.
How did he find out where they live? She took a different house this year on purpose.
I didn't tell him. I don't know how he found out.
Sydney was very clear that he was to have no contact with her.
According to Georgiana, Mrs. Griffiths has been very diligent in turning him away.
Did Miss Lamb want to see Mr. Molyneux?
No. Not until a few days ago, when she just happened to see him at his bookstall. She said he did not look well, and after that she begged Mrs. Griffiths to let him come up, but Mrs. Griffiths would not agree until your brother comes back.
Do you think she tried to meet him on her own?
It wouldn't be the first time, would it?
Is there anything we can do?
Mrs. Griffiths writes to beg our assistance. Will you come, Charlotte?
Of course.
The Parkers and Charlotte go to Mrs. Griffiths. They find her pacing in front of her fireplace, wringing her hands. The Beaufort girls and Arthur are trying to advise her.
Oh, Mr. Parker, I do not know what to do. What shall I do?
Well, now let me think. Have you searched her room?
We found this note in her fireplace.
They hand a burned fragment to Tom. He and Arthur study it while Charlotte looks on.
There are only a few letters on it. Next? Nux?
Oh, I believe it says new, as in the last letters of Molyneux.
Oh, no.
Mrs. Griffiths collapses on the sofa and turns on the waterworks. Beaufort sit by her and try to comfort her, but she cannot be consoled and gets increasingly more agitated.
I think it is safe to assume, then, that the note is from Mr. Molyneux.
Certainly looks that way.
Georgiana was very put out when Mrs. Griffith said that he could not come up this morning.
Now, Mrs. Griffiths, you must try to calm yourself. Nothing steadies my nerves like a weak dish of cocoa. Shall I get you one?
No, thank you, Mr. Arthur.
Perhaps some buttered toast?
No.
A biscuit, then.
Well, perhaps a biscuit.
Very good. Cridwell, a biscuit, if you please, and a cup of cocoa. For me. Scalded, not scorched.
What time did Mr. Molyneux call this morning?
10 o'clock, I think. It was right before we left to go shopping.
Did Georgiana go with you?
No, she never goes with us anymore. She always has a sick headache.
We should have stayed at home. If we had stayed, she would not have run away.
There, Mrs. Griffiths. No one blames you. You cannot stay in all the time.
I would have if I knew she was going to run away. I followed your brother's instructions to the letter.
Yes, I'm sure you did.
If Mr. Sidney takes her away, I'll be disgraced. No one will send their daughters to me ever again. I'm ruined.
Oh, surely not. Let's be rational and try to guess where she has gone.
If they left for Scotland by coach, perhaps you can catch them on horseback.
Oh, Scotland!
No, Charlotte's right. I am off then.
I'll go with you, Tom.
It's not a good idea, Arthur. You aren't used to riding all day.
You'll need a second man, Tom. I'd like to be that second.
Charlotte and the Beauforts look at Arthur with newfound respect.
Right then. Well, make haste. Every second counts.
Do I have time to drink my cocoa?
Afraid not.
Right then.
After Tom and Arthur leave, Mary and Charlotte remain to confer with Mrs. Griffiths and to provide what comfort they can.
Mrs. Parker, you must advise me. I've not the fairest idea of what to do next.
Perhaps we should inform the magistrate.
The magistrate?
In case she was taken against her will, like last time.
It seems pretty clear that she ran away.
I do not even know where to find one.
Nor I.
Suppose we ask Mr. Tracy. He seems to know his way around London.
Well, that's a good thought, as long as he's discreet.
He's Sydney's friend. Surely he would not spread it about.
Yes, what a good idea. And he's so concerned for Georgiana's safety. Such a good friend of Mr. Sidney's. And so handsome. Thank you, Mrs. Parker. I don't know what I would do without you. Cridwell, I have a message for you to deliver.
Mr. Tracy comes to see Mrs. Griffiths later that day.
Rest assured, Mrs. Griffiths, if she has run off with Mr. Molyneux, they may be easily tracked, provided they are not already on board a ship for the Americas. I am off to see the magistrate.
Mrs. Griffiths holds out her hand to Mr. Tracy, and he takes it very attentively.
Bless you, Mr. Tracy.
It is nothing, Mrs. Griffiths. I am glad to assist any friend of Sidney's. Now, I can see it was providential that I was kept from Antigua, or I could not have been with you in your hour of need.
Oh, yes, quite providential. It's such a comfort to have a friend in such a time as this. I'm sure I do not know what I would do without you and the Parkers.
Meanwhile, Lady Denham has arrived back in Sanditon with her new companion. Alison and Lady Denham sit at the long table at Sanditon House, eating their early dinner, with servants in attendance. The clock ticks conspicuously, and the clink of the silverware is the only other sound.
Might I inquire, I have never been in such a grand house as this. What is a usual day at Sanditon House?
No different than anywhere else. After breakfast, I write my letters and meet with Laxon to go over housekeeping. Then I meet with the groundskeeper, the gamekeeper, and then the cook. After that, I pay calls, but no one is here this time of year. Before dinner, I take a drive across the beach, then back for dinner at 4. Clara always gave me music after dinner. You played well at the Christmas party. I should like to hear more, but only happy tunes, mind you, no dirges or melancholy airs. Esther gives me enough of those.
I am of your mind, Lady Denham. I know only happy tunes.
Splendid. You may exhibit your talent this evening, then.
And when do you visit your more penurious tenants?
Why would I do that?
Well, because...
I know why I should do it in the eyes of society, but I am not the woman to help anybody blindfolded. I always take care to know what I am about and who I have to deal with before I stir a finger. I do not think I was ever overreached in my life.
But surely, if they are sick and cannot work...
They always have some excuse or another. However, if that is something you feel strongly about, you may take a basket to them, providing that they are truly ill and not just lazy.
Thank you, my lady.
The architect will be here tomorrow to discuss the renovation on the stables. I'm afraid we are in for clatter all summer. Heaven knows why I let Babington talk me into it. It will cost me an arm and a leg.
Is Mr. Stringer the architect?
Stringer? No, Milsham's the name. You must be speaking of that young man who did the preliminary sketches. Heavens! That must be the same young Stringer whose father burnt down the terrace.
He is apprentice at Mr. Milsham's firm. I understand he's to do some work on site.
Heaven help us. His father burnt down an empty building. What will he do with a barn full of straw? I do not need any fireworks.
I believe he's assisting only with the design, rather than the physical work.
Well, that's a relief, I suppose. He's a good-looking young man, I think.
Some would say so.
Be on your guard, Miss Haywood. Men like that have a way of turning their sights higher than their station. No. Stay with me this summer, and I will look out for a good match for you, if you are a good girl.
The next day, Robinson and Mr. Stringer walk out to Sanditon House, where work is beginning on renovation of Lady Denham's stables.
You ought to have heard Bridget when I told her about this job. It came just in time.
You always do good work. You were the first on the list.
Did you see Miss Haywood when you were in London?
A few times, as a matter of fact.
Now that Sidney Parker has taken himself off the market, is she any more friendly to you?
She's as friendly as ever she was, but I don't think she'll let him go yet.
You know, my sister always had a sweet spot for you.
Yeah, I know.
I know. That would never happen. Good thing, because I could not abide you as a brother.
You'd be lucky and you'd know it.
True. You know, the other Haywood girl is pretty, too.
I noticed that.
Man, you have expensive taste. Why must it always be a daughter of the landed gentry?
That has nothing to do with it.
I don't know.
I like the qualities I see in that family. Compassion, humility, not afraid to lend a hand.
So, are you going to tell this one how you feel, or wait for the next Parker to sweep her off her feet?
He already did, from what I heard.
What? He proposed?
No, but Mr. Arthur did put her airborne when he tried to trip the light fantastic at the last ball. She nearly twisted her ankle.
No fooling. I'd like to have seen that. You should talk to this girl. It couldn't hurt. What's her name?
Alison. I don't know, Robinson. There's something different about her. I could talk to Charlotte about anything. She's open. But when I first met Miss Alison, I could not get a word out to save my soul.
You do have it bad. Perhaps tell her and get it over with.
Ah, but she's still mourning her cousin.
Maybe you can help her to forget him.
I don't want to intrude so soon. And then, I have no idea what her family would say. What do I have to offer her after all?
Well, you are in this. What do you call it again?
Apprenticeship.
See, you're going someplace. She'll see that.
Do you think so?
If she's smart.
Oh, she is smart. She had an eye for architecture, just like Charlotte.
As they near the estate, they see a girl snipping flowers in the garden.
I thought Lady Denham sent her niece packing.
She did.
Then who's that?
I don't know. It looks like it can't be. It's Miss Alison.
Alison sees the men approaching. Stringer lifts his hat to her and quickens his pace.
Good day, Miss Alison. I didn't think to see you so soon.
Lady Denham asked me to stay with her to Sanditon.
Miss Alison, I need you.
And it appears I have been summoned. Good day, gentlemen.
Stringer and Robinson watch her retreat to the house with admiration.
Did you hear that? She called me a gentleman.
I wouldn't take it too much to heart. She called me one as well. I'll bet the battle axe doesn't share her opinion.
No, I'm sure she doesn't.
I wonder what a tender shoot like Miss Alison is doing with the likes of her.
She may look tender, but something tells me she has the Midas touch. You may see that battle axe turn into a gold plowshare by the end of the summer.
You have a lot more faith than I do, James. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
It all depends on who's doing the teaching.
I'll bet you would be a willing pupil.
I always did like school.
Thank you for watching episode 6 of Parker Brothers Build the Boardwalk. Today's term in the auditory scavenger hunt was waterworks. Join us next week to find out what has happened to Miss Lambe and to see just how closely Mr. Stringer must supervise the stable renovation now that a certain young lady has appeared. From all of us at DIY Austen Drama, have a pleasant week.